food and dining, but we're going to get into some complex stuff. Some vocabulary maybe you haven't heard before, right? So there's something for everyone here. Something for intermediate, something for advanced. Here you can say some pictures of different kinds of dishes. What's your favorite kind of food to eat when you eat out? I really like sushi. I like sushi a lot. Does anyone like sushi? Do you prefer fine dining or something economic? You can see we have some Vietnamese food there. The pho. Gus says, my favorite kind of food is anything edible. Good try with eatable. Good try. Always good to try to adapt vocabulary, but we actually have edible. It's a bit of a irregular one, I suppose. Edible food. Yep, I know. That's why I wrote it. I'll eat anything that's edible, says Gus. Be careful with that, Gus. It can negatively, in fact, impact your health. You are what you eat, as we say. Bit of an expression in England, in English. And of course, other languages also say that. Eres lo que comes. Spanish. People listening, please do try to interact in the chat if you want to participate. I do try to make this a real class. I don't want to just lecture about food. I could lecture about food. I could lecture you about food all day. I could talk about Vietnamese pho, how I like my pho to be spicy. I like spicy pho. I know that not everyone in Vietnam likes their pho to be spicy, but I like mine to be a bit spicy. Spicy pho. And actually, we're going to watch a video later on today, hopefully. One of my culinary heroes. One of my culinary heroes. A culinary hero. What's a culinary hero? Someone who's a hero for you because of their knowledge of food and cooking and whatever, that kind of stuff. So, we got some fancy food. We got some economic food. When you have food at a restaurant, do you spend some time talking to the people at the restaurant about the food? You know that conversation, you're in a restaurant and they're like, how's the food? And you sort of say stuff like, oh, well, it's very nice actually, thanks for asking. You know what I'm talking about there? Quite a common conversation to have in a restaurant. How's your burger? Are you enjoying it? Well, it was a little synthetic actually, Gus. So a good acting skills would be like, how's your burger? How's it going? Is it good? And then my friend, oh yes, it's marvelous. Thanks for asking. Bilsani Rim says, no, I don't. I don't talk about food. What? What kind of a person do you think I am, talking about food while eating food? And then Gus, you're now going to be a redneck, okay? You know, boy, I was being sarcastic, boy. That's now Gus's accent. You got some good acting skills there, boy. But you know, I was being sarcastic, boy. All right, very good. So that's our chat about food. Let's move on. So here we got 4 pictures. We got chili, calamari, which is squid, hamburger, or as the French say, hamburger. Hamburger and fish. fish, the kind of fish you get in the UK. There we go. So, as you can see here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 statements in answer to the question, how's your food? How's your burger? How's your chili? I want you to match the statements to the food. Match the statements to the food. So, which of these dishes do these statements describe? You can see I have rearranged my studio, and we have in the background my guitar, my Gibson SG Standard. I do like that guitar. I've had that guitar for 20 years. That's weird, isn't it? How can you own something for 20 years without being really old? You know what I mean? What do you think, guys? The bun's okay. The bun's okay. The meat's a bit dry. It's a bit overcooked. Number 2, it's got a good flavour. It's flaky on the inside. And let me do that properly. Oh, it's got a good flavour. It's flaky on the inside, and the batter's nice and crispy. You know, I like my crispy batter. 3, it's pretty spicy. It's got a bit of a kick to it. Look at that pronunciation. It's got a bit of a kick to it. Number 4, they're a bit chewy. Maybe they were cooked from frozen, you know. So, Bilsane says number 1 is the burger. And that is 100% correct. Well done. Number 1 is the hamburger. Hamburger number 1. Meat's a bit dry. It's overcooked. If you overcook the burger, it gets a bit dry. Very good, Huanzing. Thank you. You nailed it. Number 2, fish. It's got a good flavour. Flaky on the inside, and the batter's nice and crispy. If you've ever been to the UK, then maybe you'll have had this kind of fish and chips. Flaky fish. Flaky is just very desirable for fish. Now, what's flaky? It's when you have like pieces of the fish, and it's like when you open the fish, it separates. You know. Number 3 is chili. Spicy. It's got a bit of a kick to it. So a bit of a kick could mean spicy, or it could mean alcohol. If you drink something, you're like, whoa, it's got a bit of a kick to it. And then number 4, they're a bit chewy. Maybe they were cooked from frozen. That is, of course, our calamari. Calamari, if you don't cook it well, it's chili. Bill Sane says, I'm a sociable person. Well, I'm a communicative language teacher, Bill Sane. I've been doing that for like 14 years. Actually, I'm an introvert, and I spoke about this in a video not too long ago. I am an introvert, but introverts sometimes have to learn how to be sociable. Sociable? Sociable. Yes, sociable. All right, let's move on then, folks. Okay, so here's some more adjectives for describing food. And as you can see here, we've got lots of different food on the screen. Curry, steak, nachos and dip, pickled onions, chips, cake, vegetable soup. So we'd like to match those adjectives to the food. Now, they're not one for one. I mean, salty could be nachos and dip. It could be chips. You know, chips, by the way, that's what the Americans call fries. You want some fries, boy? I'm doing my Texan accent there. Also, my face is hiding some of the adjectives, so let's just move those up. You see my names there as well. That is actually an adjective you can use for food. Rich. But, you know, have a go. And if you don't know, why don't you ask me? You can ask me what some of these words mean, and I'll show you. Feel free to ask. We're really looking to expand vocabulary today, you know. So, what was I going to do? I had an idea then, and now it's disappeared from my head. That's it. I need to raise all of these to the top level. Boom. Okay. Any suggestions then? So salty, I'm going to start us off. Salty, nachos and dip. Alternatively, could be the chips as well. Could be anything really, but I think nachos are pretty salty, aren't they? Salty. Is that what they say, the Americans? Wait a minute. Salty. I can't say salt with an American accent. Blissane Rim says cake is sweet. So number 6, sweet. I think that's a pretty good. That's pretty good. Sounds pretty good to me. Gonna get this a little bit more central because this is actually a directional microphone, which means if I speak over here, you can't really hear me. But then if I speak over here, then it's really loud, right? That's how this microphone works. It's awesome. Sweet, a sweet cake. How about rich? What could be rich? Crisp. The steak's overcooked, says Huang. Overcooked dry steak. Yeah. We'll just do a few more of these. We're not going to do all of them. Crisps crunchy. You know, crisps could be crunchy. Chips could be crunchy. But, you know, these chips here don't actually look crunchy. I would actually say these chips here look kind of greasy. You know, they look kind of greasy. Acidic pickled onions. That's awesome. Well done. And yeah, Hung and Blissane both got that at the same time. All right, 30 seconds and then we'll move on. So I'm going to quickly fill some of these in. Juicy could be a steak, but not that steak. And a dip, nice cheesy taste. Oily curry, oily chips, oily fish as well. Now examples of this would be fruit, juicy orange, juicy steak, juicy. What do you bite that gets stuff comes out? You know, a juicy. A juicy, lots of meaty things and fishy things. Juicy shrimps, yeah, juicy little clams. I mean, that's the video we're going to do today, actually, if we get a chance. Juicy shrimp. Well, hello. Overcooked is negative. Overcooked, negative. That's absolutely right. Overcooked is always negative. It can never, ever, ever be positive. What about melts in your mouth? You know, I was eating some chocolate the other day and it just melts in your mouth. Or, you know, have you ever had meat when you eat the meat and it melts in your mouth? Yep, that's right. Melts in your mouth is super positive. Let's have a look at some of these weird ones like stale and rich and stuff. What about, let's do stale first. Stale. Stale. Positive for melts in your mouth, I think, says Fern. Tifa doesn't know stale. Dun dun dun. Fail. You fail. Just kidding, Tifa. I'm going to show you now. stale bread. Stale's always used for bread, pretty much. And stale bread means it's hard and old and stale. And there you go. That's stale bread. So stale is, of course, negative and is often used with bread. All right. So how about rich? Stale tangerine. Yeah, you can use stale with fruit as well. You're right. Stale orange. Just tend to be bread, though. Rich is positive, as I am, says Tifa. Thank you, Tifa. Thank you very much for the super chat. I wish I could, like, pretend that you've given me a super chat. Hang on. I think I can do something here. Oh, I don't have the widget up. Never mind. Never mind. Ignore that. You put the widget up. How do I do this? Alert box, is it? Donations, subscriptions, yeah. Alert box. Widget. Oh, thank you, John. Thank you very much for the super chat. That'll keep my children eating for the next month. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Where were we? We were talking about tender. Tender. It's tender. Sweet and tender. Could be sweet and tender. Could be juicy and tender. 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 Any ideas for tender, anyone? Is it positive, negative, etc.? I don't know why. Why is it a zombie? I don't know. I don't know why it's a zombie. Can I actually make it so it's anything other than a zombie? I don't know if I can actually. I don't know. Yeah, don't worry about it, Gus. It's all right. Tender meat, meaty, tender, positive. That's right. Okay, and we're going to move on. Unless anyone has. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Any questions about any of the words remaining? You've got 10 seconds to ask your question. 10. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dun. Tifa says, I don't know, flaky. So flaky is actually positive. Almost always refers to fish. Could refer to some other stuff. And it means that the fish kind of breaks up into flakes. And flaky fish is very desirable. It means that you have cooked the fish correctly. And I will show you what flaky fish looks like. Looks like that. And you can see there the flakes. See the flakes? That's flaky fish. So we do like our fish to be flaky. And they're the flakes in the fish. And we actually use it as a verb sometimes. You flake the fish, right? You can flake the fish. Yeah, flaky is positive. Well done. Well done, Blissane. True happiness, Vietnam. Let's find out. Anthony Bourdain. It's right there. So he mentioned a few things at the start. He said, I've got everything I need for happiness. And he mentioned 3 things. And after the things, he said, check, right? So what did he say? What were the 3 things that he said he needs for happiness? a silly, foolish man beyond caring. And he also mentions his beer, pronounces it Buddha. As British people would say Buddha. Buddha, my preferred brand, whenever which way, I believe he says. And yeah, I think I did get copyright. Fantastic. Anyone still there? Have I been blocked? Thank you, thank you. Amazing, amazing. I'll know to be careful about that in future. So hopefully you caught some of that, and you caught the idea that he talked about what you need for happiness. So what did he say? What's the key element needed for happiness? Something delicious in a bowl? Check. Well, good food, beer, and the chair. Is that what he said? He said tiny little plastic tool. Check. Oh, yeah, he did, didn't he? He said cold something beer. Check. And then he said something delicious in a bowl. Check. And did you see at one point he said, so many of the greatest meals of my life have been enjoyed by this. Sitting by the roadside, eating something that I'm not entirely sure what it is. Eating something that I'm not entirely sure what it is. Eating something that I'm not entirely sure what it is. Have you ever ate something that you're not entirely sure what it is? I'm not sure that I've ever eaten something that I'm not entirely sure what it is. Maybe in Vietnam I did, actually. I used to teach in Vietnam with the British Council in Hanoi. So it's a possibility. So we are getting towards the end of our little class here. I'd like to know, is there any new vocabulary, any new words that you've seen today? Any new words that you'd like to remember? And can you just mention those in chat and maybe give a little example there? So as you can see, I've given an example of crispy, and this here is called personalization. This is a personalized example where I say I like my potatoes to be crispy on the outside. How do you spell check? So it's actually spelled check, like that. Okay, and the Americans use this as an exclamation mark. Exclamation, which comes from a noun, and the noun actually in American English, the noun means that, and they use it like I've got, people, check, alcohol, check, free time, check, let's have a party, right? But that's the Americans. British people don't really use this word like that, and in fact we actually call this a tick rather than a check. What would we say? Food, yes. Tiny stool, yes. Beer, got it. But yeah, the Americans like this check. All my friends, check. My birthday, check. Party, check. Let's go. For me, it's flaky and bland. Yeah? Well, Tifa, you need to tell me, what do you think's bland? What do you think's flaky? And if possible, you should refer to your own experience. When he said check, I thought about paying money. So, yeah, the Americans also refer to the check, which is in English what we call the bill. And that is actually a different word. Okay, and the check or the bill is a piece of paper with what you have to pay written on it. So it's what you have to pay, basically. The British say the bill, the Americans say the check, and that's actually completely different than this little symbol there, this little check sign. So here's a little bit of homework for anyone who's interested. I'd like you to prepare a little short talk describing some dishes from your country or area. Make notes and prepare to talk for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, what you can do is you could do that, and you could record yourself, and you could email it to me at professorrich@gmail.com. And if you do that, then I will, in the next live stream, I'll go through it and I'll talk about your English and your pronunciation. So that's an option for you, but you have to do that before next Friday. Before next Friday, send me an email with a recording. Alternatively, write it and post below as a comment, and I'll correct it. All right, so that's your little homework task there relating to this class. Feel free to do that. This class will be up on the channel, recorded as a VOD. I'll have to edit it for the bit where we got copyrighted by CNN. Thank you very much for that. That's brilliant. Even though it was transformative what I was doing, and technically that shouldn't come under copyright law, but there you go, folks. You can't have everything. So now we're on to question time. Does anyone have any questions? I'll answer any and all questions about English to the best of my ability. And I'll just give you a minute or two to say your questions or forever hold your peace. I have to say, it's a bit of a shame we didn't get any returners from last week, because there was a few new people who came in last week, and unfortunately they've all disappeared, which is a real shame, because I thought they did quite enjoy the class. But there you go. Trying to build up a little English learning community here. And I suppose I could talk a little bit about the different things I'm trying. And I would also be really interested to know people's opinions on stuff like this. So obviously, my videos have always been kind of recently have been like behind the fourth wall videos. So these are videos which teach you about how language is learned, rather than just doing a video which is like, here's 10 phrases to say hello, or here's 10 ways of making requests or whatever. I've been making videos which actually teach you how language is learned, which, as far as I can tell, no one else on YouTube really goes into detail about that, certainly not aimed at students. So I've been doing that, and they're doing okay, but it's really not where I need to be for this channel to be sustainable, because it takes a lot of time for me to do this, and I would like to make it useful. I would like to have more of an audience like we had back in the day. So for that, I really need to know what are the useful things you find about my videos, and which of the videos are more useful than others, so I can start to craft that a bit more. Watch time is everything. Engagement is everything. That's how YouTube works now. It's all about having that high watch time, having the engagement, having people click on the video, watch the video fully, and be like, yeah, and then even watch another video is even better, right? And that's when YouTube really starts to promote your channel more. So I could do what everyone else is doing, which is vocabulary word lists and stuff. But honestly, I'm not convinced of the utility of that in its form. And I've spoke about that. And I'll just interrupt my little rant here because Tang has asked a question. So does tender mean soft or easy to eat? It means both, actually. Tender means kind of soft and easy to eat. And kind of melts in your mouth. Tender is not quite melt in your mouth, right? Like melt in your mouth would be a bit more. So let's get rid of that. But yeah, tender, soft, easy to eat. This is with food, by the way. You can also use tender with like your body, right? And if you use tender with your body, then it means you feel a bit sore, right? So if you say, oh, my arm's a bit tender, right? That means that your arm actually feels a bit sore. Like when you push on it, when you feel your arm, you're like, oof, oh, it's a bit sore, it's a bit tender. Okay, whereas tender for food is soft and easy to eat. How can I do this? Do it like that. Tender for food and tender. My arm's a bit tender. You feel a bit for it hurts to touch it. All right. Thank you very much, Tifa. That's a lovely comment. I know the song Love Me Tender, Love Me True. Yeah, because tender, again, it's like kind of softly, right? So love me tender means treat me softly, right? Treat me softly. Don't treat me rough, right? So in some ways, when tender is used like that, like an adverb, how you're using it, love me tender, it's an adverb, then we're saying that in an adverb form, yeah, it means the opposite of rough, really. Okay. There's quite a few people in chat. It seems like people have returned after CNN copyrighted me. Thanks, CNN. So, does anyone have any questions about English? I'm taking any and all questions right now. I want my logo on there as well. I need to change it actually because I've changed the name of the brand now. We're no longer Professor Rich. We're now Prof Rich Teaching because people kept asking why I misspelt professor. It's because my business started in Spain 10 years ago. So there you go. That's the story behind that. There's quite a big story behind that actually. But Professor Rich, you know, when I used to do those early videos, I used to translate everything in Spanish. So I'd say something and then I'd say like something in Spanish as well. And I'm not convinced that that's a brilliant way to teach anymore. I'm not 100% against using translation. I think using translation can be effective, but overusing translation is a problem. You shouldn't rely on translation, but translation can be, you know, useful, right? So I was talking about the future plan for the channel. And, you know, I get lots of positive feedback from people like Tifa and Gus who always enjoy the videos and say, you know, it's great, you're doing something that other people aren't doing. And that's wonderful. But one of two things needs to happen. One, I need to find like another 20,000 people who are just like Tifa and Gus. Or two, I need to do something a little bit differently. So if anyone has any comments as to how I can do something a bit differently, I mean, what would be really interesting would be to know when people watch those videos that I post, like at what point do you switch off? When do you find it boring? Because that's the issue. That's the issue. If at any point the video gets boring, then I'm doing something wrong, and that's it. That's how YouTube works now. There's no room for maneuvering. Questions, English questions. I'm going to keep sticking around until I get some more questions. Questions about English. Because there's 5 people lingering in the chat right now. So if you're lingering in the chat, any questions at all about English, I'm taking them. Tifa, food is always singular form, isn't it? Why are food and furniture and luggage all in singular form? So, how do you know? Or let's say, Why are some things countable and some things uncountable? Well, there are some historic reasons for this. A lot of this in English comes from Latin. And in Latin, you have a thing called mass nouns. And a mass noun is uncountable, and you use the singular form. So that's kind of where it comes from historically. Now, the problem is, because a lot of this is convention, then we also have newer words in the language which are countable, even though they appear similar to others, right? And so the real question now is, in the modern day, why? It's just convention. It's just convention. So that means they were uncountable and now they are uncountable. So words like information. Now you've said furniture. That's right. Furniture is uncountable. However, food is not always uncountable. Because we can use food to refer to food groups. So one of the ways of talking about food is food as food groups. Like, what are some foods to eat when dieting? And someone might say, oh, fish and low-fat vegetables and stuff like that, right? But obviously, yes, it's true that food more generally... food in general, and then it is uncountable. I don't have a lot of food. Yeah. So we could compare, in fact, the example. I don't have a lot of food. I haven't got a lot of food in my fridge right now. And if we compare that to I don't eat a lot of different foods, meaning that I don't have a good variety of dishes that I eat. So food can actually be countable or uncountable. And going back to your question as to why, it's convention. It's just history. It's just established over time, and it's the orthodox, conventional way of doing something. And actually, that's the way that most of the things in language evolve. And I've said this before, grammatical rules are really inventions that we put on top of a natural flowing language, a natural flowing process. Why are food and furniture and luggage, you also said, luggages. Yes, luggage is uncountable, you're right. It's sometimes quite a difficult concept for students to get hold of, that that language evolves naturally, and that the rules, the grammar, are things that we've just invented and put on top of it. It's like trying to invent very simple rules to explain the behavior of a dog. Like, if you put food down, the dog will eat it. That's like a grammar rule of dogs, except sometimes the dogs are full or they don't like the food, so they don't eat it. So you get all these exceptions with it. So Tang says, can you use English words borrowed from Latin, such as inter alia and per se in IELTS? Absolutely, because they're not real. They do come from Latin, but they are English. They're in the English dictionary and they are used. Really, in IELTS, you should be able to use, let's make this clear, and not just should be able to, but in fact can, because IELTS is a descriptive language exam. As much as a language exam can be descriptive, which means that if something is used, then it's good, right? So in speaking, you can use all kinds of stuff in IELTS, lots of colloquial language, things like that. In writing, the Latin forms are great. So what are some of the examples? We've got, per se. Even things like modus ponens. Actually, maybe not modus ponens. That might be a bit too philosophical. Quid pro quo. QED. That's a bit of a fancy one. Faux pas. Well, faux pas, I suppose, is French, really, isn't it? But yeah, we got French ones as well, you know. If you think about it, it's not just Latin. So let's call it like foreign words, right? Because we got faux pas and we've got bon appetit. How do you spell bon appetit? Appétit. If we spell it the French way, then that's how you spell it. But I don't know if in English we put two P's and make it appetite. Bon appétit. It is two P's. In French even. How about that? And it doesn't have the E. Bon appétit. There we go. So, in fact, these Latin words actually tend to be used more in academic writing. So, in fact, if you're doing like a formal writing, then absolutely they are good to use. Inter alia is an interesting one. I don't think I've particularly come across. Among other things. Yeah, I mean, it's in the Oxford English Dictionary. Inter alia. Apparently that's how we say it. Inter alia. Do I have my output on? No, I don't. Here you go. You can hear this. You ready?
Inter alia.
Inter alia. Inter alia. Inter alia. It doesn't sound Latin at all to me when you say it like that, because they would say it like inter alia, right? That would be like the Latin way of saying it. Tang says, thanks a lot, it's really informative. The last time I did use inter alia in the Mac test, but the examiner had no idea of the word. Tang, you see, that's true, right? That's true, but there's a thing about this, Tang, that there are English words that the examiner won't know. So the risk could also be the same with English words. And the point there is, Tang, it might be the fact that it was a mock, because really if you're taking IELTS, the person who's marking the exam should be prepared to get like Band 9 vocabulary, which means they have to have a really good range of vocabulary themselves. Because there's a whole load of, I mean, I'm an English teacher. I teach lessons almost every day. I do online teaching at the moment. And I come across words, I don't know, and like a student will give me an essay or they'll say something and I'll be like, huh? And I'll look it up and it's like, oh yeah, it's a word and it's sometimes used. So then you kind of go, well, all right. So yeah, that's all I can really say about that. I mean, I don't want to say it's a risk because as far as I'm concerned, if it's a word that's there, that's in use, then it has to be accepted. And really it would be the fault of the person correcting that exam. Of course, examiners aren't perfect, but it would be the fault of the person correcting that exam. You would have to be careful, I suppose, because it is quite academic. So you wouldn't want to use it out of context, right? What does it mean? Among other things. So if I said like, Tang, would you like a drink? Would you like a drink? I've got tea, I've got coffee, I've got, let me think, I've got inter alia, orange juice. It's like, that might not come out quite right. It sounds a bit odd. But the study includes inter alia, computers, aircraft, and pharmaceuticals. That's the example that's given on Google. Now, why don't we do a little search here to see? So there's 24 million hits on Google of inter alia, which means it must be used in academia. So quite an academic word. Really nice word that I like to use on academic papers is juxtaposition. And I bet there are some English teachers out there who don't know that word. So juxtaposition basically means contrast. but it's normally like an extreme contrast. So you talk about, for example, the juxtaposition. Let's say you're in a fine dining restaurant and you're having sweet and sour, really sweet and sour flavors, and they're so nice, and you're like, oh yes, I love the juxtaposition between the bitterness of the lemon and the sweetness of the prawns. Do we have any others? We're going all night with this one. Should make it a 24-hour stream. I kind of wonder, I wonder what you need to do to actually pick up viewers just from YouTube naturally, because that doesn't really seem to be happening here. It's not like people are turning up and like this video is popping up, but I know that it does on the, there's another channel that I stream for, which is a massive channel on YouTube, and we have hundreds of people watching live, and people come in. They just come in and they go, what's this? What's going on? So that obviously happens when you have a certain number of viewers, but, you've got to get a few to get to that. You've got 20 seconds to ask another one. Rodrigo Sanchez Carceles says, any tips with regards to placement in order to sound a bit more native-like, apart from checking and practicing the vowel trapezium? Thanks a bunch, mucker. That was someone with some fancy vocabulary there. With regards to placement, in order to sound more native-like, apart from checking and practicing the vowel trapezium. So I can only assume, Rodrigo, that what you're talking about there is the phonetics, the phonemic chart, the vowel trapezium being the space of the mouth as mapped onto the phonemic chart. In English, the vowel trapezium is E, O, O, is it? Yeah, O, and R? Is R the one on the other side? Well, whatever. Anyway, the vowel trapezium is the full extent of all the sounds that the mouth makes, depending whether the mouth is closed or open, or the tongue is forward or back. So, actually, I don't really recommend practicing the vowel trapezium very much. I think that practicing individual sounds in general has some limited use. For someone like yourself who appears to be a Spanish speaker, it is useful for you to practice, to some extent, phonemics. I would say more for comprehension, actually. But comprehension will bleed into your production. So to some extent, it's worth you knowing all these sounds and the diphthongs and being able to hear them and produce them. However, there is a danger, and the danger is if you overemphasize individual sounds, it will negatively affect your fluent speech and connected speech. So you got to be careful, because if you start trying to really say those sounds, oh yes, the other day I went home, you start doing that and you start to sound like some sort of radio presenter, and it's not how people speak. So I would only recommend doing that if also you focus on, what are we going to call it? Sentence stress, I'm going to call it. But you could call it connected speech if you want. Not only isolated phonemics. So focusing on sentence stress involves a few things. I do have some videos about that, by the way, on the channel. My classic example of that is I'm going to go to the park. Okay, not I'm going to go to the park, but I'm going to go to the park. Gonna go park. There's three parts of the stressed, and you clap it out. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go to the park, right? So it's not I'm going to go to the park. It's I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go to the park, right? And you can listen to native speaking, and you can copy. You can copy. You can copy. You can copy. One stress there. You can copy their pronunciation. You can copy their pronunciation, right? Using sentence stress, and by coupling sentence stress with your knowledge of the sounds will help. But I do recommend doing both. So I'm not. When you said placement as well, I wasn't quite sure what you meant. Do you mean the position, mouth position? But yeah, mouth position can be useful, but you gotta do this as well. I was asking about resonance in the chest. What? You mean voiced and unvoiced? Or do you mean certain sounds like or, oh, or, ah, ah, ah. To me, resonance in the chest just sounds like voiced and unvoiced, which is like or whether it's a voice sound or not. B, t, d. L. It sounds a bit like you're talking a bit about the tone of your voice rather than the phonemic sounds, you know? Like it sounds like you're talking to me now. It sounds like you're talking about voice tone. Now, if you want to improve voice tone, sing loudly. The Spanish sounds come from the front of the mouth, because you're deeper from the chest. Okay, it doesn't come from the chest. It doesn't come from the chest. So what you are talking about is you're talking about that, and that pretty much. They're the main ones. And these are sounds which are not really in Spanish, right? Because in Spanish you just got like u, what else is there? Hablar, right? No, they don't have I, do you? You have I, a, u, and e, right? So Spanish just has like 5 sounds, and like you said with the vowel trapezium, the Spanish one would be like something like that, right? It cut all these sounds off. So with Spanish people, they do need to learn these sounds, or, ah, ah. So it's not the chest. It's not coming from the chest, actually. All of these are vowel sounds. All vowel sounds are voiced. So all vowel sounds require, you have to make a noise, right? It's not, it's, so they all require that same sound, but then it's the shape of your mouth, right, that determines what sound comes out. E, oo, or. So it's not coming from my chest. The vibration comes from your chest always, because that's your voice box. Or. But what makes the sound or? Well, it's my tongue, or, at the back of my mouth, or. It's a little bit raised and kind of pulled back, or. And you can see the rounded lips, or, for, thought, or. So it's all to do with your mouth. That's where you want to focus. Because you can make that that's no problem. Nothing changes in my chest. The only thing that changes is my mouth and my tongue. or, ah, ah, oh. So these two are right at the back. And if you have problems with the sounds at the back, then these are the ones you have the most problem with, which is or and ah, right at the back, ah. It's almost like, you know, when you do in Spanish, you do like o, right, with the fronted lips, o, like o. Well, it's like that, but you do that round thing, but kind of with your tongue right at the back, oh, not, forgot, a lot, hot, it's hot, oh. I can't really show you because like, I'd have to put the camera in my mouth and then you'll see how stained my tongue is from drinking all this tea. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, Rodrigo. That is what I would say. And actually, yes, I think there is some value on practicing those sounds. And I think there is also some value in learning what words they often relate to, right? Because I know a lot of Spanish speakers, they really struggle with this sound, right? Because the sound is but if you look at the words we use it for, work, bird, third, word. It's like you wouldn't expect that, right? World, burn, burn. So it's definitely worthwhile, like, getting those sound spelling relationships. And you can see there is a bit of a pattern there, actually. And the pattern is you have a consonant, a vowel, which is O, I, or U, and then R, the letter R. And often in English, when you have that combination, then the vowel becomes word, bird, third, work, world, burn. Because obviously Spanish people, they often see that and they go word, or word, or beard, or work, or something, right? It's not work, it's work, right? World, not walled, but world. It's like the sound you make when you see something disgusting in English. World, bird, All right. Right, does anyone have anything else before I disappear and play video games? Actually, I'll have my tea first. Ten seconds for another question. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Very much appreciate your support. I would very much like to know any videos that well, Rodrigo, yeah, there are some differences. Just to finish off with this little conversation. I studied this, right? I mean, I'm a language teacher. I've been studying this for 14 years, but also I have a master's and MSc in applied linguistics. I've studied phonemics and the mouth to a great extent. So the main differences in sounds are shape of the mouth, and also there's a nasal component. Like if you listen to Portuguese, they have lots of like nye sounds, like nye, which has like a nasal component, which, yeah, that's very different. However, what happens in the chest doesn't change. You know why? Because you haven't got control of it. The lowest part you have control of is called the glottis, right? And the glottis is what in English we use to say got. Instead of got, we say got. And that's right at the back of my mouth, this thing called the glottis, and I can do a glottal